Banner news, that's what this represents, although you can't see it moving right now. You have banner pictures, so a person, you can put different news messages on there. The person clicks on it, pull up the message that you're trying to relay. Usually you typically have 5 or 6 different banners running on there. The banners will also run on the cell phone too. Here's Mumblesdorf with a pool next to Mr. Fry's heart. That's the first and foremost item. You can see here, how to I do this. It's not as a quick, it's intuitive. You click on it, and it can take you basically to a search feature. Again, the user-friendly, cell phone-friendly items here for you to click to get things. The top banner that people are accustomed to. The news, circulating news, you can see the dots there. That's how they got their settings set up. They're automatically turned to, but you can pause it. This happens to be what this municipality did here. They gave a lot of what their functionality is. That's quite frankly above my pay grade. I'm not an IT specialist at this point, but I know the systems work well. Here's their timeline. This is where their 90-day timeline is put into the schedule. So you guys gave me instructions that you want to go live for a website in January. Go live is now mid-January if you adopt it at our next meeting. They will give a day's worth of full training to our staff. That's one of the critical things to take from this page. And that's actually important. And right now we only have one person that's training in our township on our current web page. It'd be good to have multiple people trained on our web page going forward with that training, including getting on the police side up to date with our web page too. They do modules. One of the biggest things are, if you guys remember, with Lisa, we struggled with our registration forms with the pool. And we tried going third parties, and it was messy. They provide this stuff as one of their no additional cost services. We do not have that with our current website provider. They will help us make those forms, and they will be seamless to what we have. If you go to East Hempfield's website, you go to pay for permit, you'll see the forms. It ties into municipal pay. It's all there. We can roll this out for our pool as our first one to test it out, and then down the road with some of our other things, we can look at expanding that. But it's very user friendly. Right now in the budget, we have $15,000. They're proposing $11,250. We'll probably have some additional money we need to spend with some additional add-ons. So $15,000 is a good number. Then you have an annual service agreement, and that's $2,250, which is in line with what we're currently paying with our current provider. You can create sub-sites. That's where we're talking about. We might be spending some additional money at this point, depending on what the authority wants to do. That would be a sub-site that will cost $2,500, and probably that's the authority to pay for that. Additional support users, so we have someone other than Lisa helping with that. There's going to be an additional user fee. But that would be something we would want to do. We would have more than one person working with that. We don't have to worry about an alternate payment plan. I think we can manage to cover the cost of that. So I just wanted to roll that out so that it will not be a new business item, it will be an action item at our meeting. Another thing that we already talked about was right sizing organization. That is already in the proposed budget. Some difficult discussions have occurred over the last couple of days. The staff is fully aware of all the changes that have occurred, and we are ready to move forward at this point with the adjustments that will occur with our being proposed in this budget. A third proposed cost savings. Actually, I'll throw this in before we talk about the third proposed cost savings. Another thing that we are working on, and we will be meeting with our insurance broker next week, is additional ways to save money on medical costs for the township. And that is with the township going to a high deductible healthcare plan with a health savings account. That is not reflected in this budget at this point. I'm not sure yet what the savings will be at this point. Even if we go forward with that change, it will take us a good month to enroll it into the budget. So more than likely, if we do go with that change, we will be looking at a budget adoption at our second December meeting, because we would be incorporating that change into the budget. We would be on a very tight timeline, but that's not unusual to do that because most businesses, when they decide to go this route, go to a high deductible healthcare plan with HSA, health savings account, usually make this decision in November because that's when they get their updated insurance prices and they go, oh my goodness, how am I going to pay this medical bill? I need to look at different options. So we're basically on the same glide path of any other entity that would go to a high deductible plan with a health savings account if we go that route. I do believe the numbers will look favorable if we do go that route, but I reserve any further discussion until that meeting next week to see what comes out of it. But that is something that we're going to be looking at. We would also, of course, at some point extend that olive branch to the police department too, as a way to control overall costs. So it may be with only the non-uniform staff or with some reopening of the agreements, focusing purely on medical costs that may be at the town. Then next one is what I was instructed was our Board of Supervisors medical modifications, and basically looking at the options of having Medicare Advantage, Medicare Plus options for the Board of Supervisors. We did investigate that. I provided that to our over 65 board members. There's about a 50% savings with it, and it does not affect our overall underwriting of our those that remain on the plan. I can't provide more information because at this point, HIPAA laws require the individuals in question to actually work directly with the providers that provide personal health care information. So I took this one as far as we can go, but I did get a commitment, obviously, from our two older supervisors that they wanted to go this route and that they would be investigating and meeting with multiple providers, whether it's going with ARP and using them as a broker. There's also that top 5 list that I provided you guys to reach out to get information on costs and options and plans. The fourth one is the board and the pay reduction. So those are proposed cost-saving measures that are out there that are being considered and being thought about at this point.
Being actively worked.
And actively worked on. Next thing is going to be LERTA. We talked about that. It is complete on the township's end. It is still not complete on the school district's end, on the county's end. We do have some additional steps. We do have a LERTA application form. I've not shared it with the board yet because I've been working on the budget, but we did put together a form either at the next meeting or our first December meeting. It will be rolled out to the public for public discussion. And will be in place by the time that hopefully the school district and the county have adopted LERTA. Next item is bullet point number 3 for the board to consider and discuss, and that is LERTA eligible properties that participate in the LERTA over the next 3 years. Traffic impact fees will be delayed and due in full at the end of year 2 in the LERTA program. Second item, which goes hand in hand with that, is for LERTA eligible properties that participate in LERTA over the next 3 years, park and rec fees will be waived in full. As we had talked before, those 2 fees represent about 1/10 of what the tax benefits that the entity will get from LERTA. So it's more of a symbolic gesture. So I talked about their implications with waiving the traffic impact fees, like I'm proposing to waive for the park and rec fees. So that is what I'm proposing to further sweeten the deal with businesses looking at enter into LERTA.
You will have motions on these the next meeting then, or when should we adopt
You
this?
could even make a motion right now. if you
Make a
want to.
motion now.
It's basically
I
just
think we
saying.
absolutely need to do that. We absolutely need to give the businesses complete incentive, take the reins off, let them run. That's part of what they were basically telling us in the focus group data. I think it's the right thing to do.
And it's the businesses in the alert zone, if they're not in the alert zone, it doesn't
Correct.
apply.
Yeah,
So
correct.
we're all clear on that.
Or if they don't apply for alert.
Don't,
Does
yeah,
not.
yeah,
So they have, primarily they have to have the LERTA or apply for the LERTA first.
Yep.
In addition to that, they get the benefit of the park and rec fee waived. And in addition to that, they get the benefit of traffic impact.
Should we do it, should we do it in 2 separate motions then?
But just one other question, Alerta, is that they're gonna go through the 3-step process, us, the school, and the county, correct?
They have to go through the application
Fine.
process.
Correct, yep.
So we're all clear, it's.
Yeah. So the motion be, LERTA eligible properties that participate in LERTA over 3 years, the traffic impact payment will be delayed and then due in full after that.
At the end of year 2 of the order program.
Yeah,
That's your motion.
that's a motion. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Why at the end of the second year do you look at the full payment on traffic impact? Where did the 2-year?
Because that's when they start also paying the additional assessed fee, and there's implications. We actually have timelines within Act 209 to spend monies, and it's just going to be cleaner to collect that at the 2-year point. That's what's kind of driving it,
So it'll be collected in full.
to collect it in full.
Other situations, there's a payment plan put out there over several years.
They could discuss that.
We can do
Right
that.
now, the public plan will be paid in full. That would be outside of this motion.
But we can make that motion for each individual.
On an individual
Right.
basis.
The decision's made on the individual basis because we've
This
already,
makes it more clear cut.
you know,
Because
we've already set
each
that
payment
precedent.
plan is kind of tailored to the specific project. Each
Right.
one's been different.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
So your next motion would be for LERTA eligible properties that participate in LERTA, the next 3 years, park and rec fees will be waived in full.
Who wants to make that
I'll
motion?
make that motion. That's the same, one of the same scenarios.
Same scenario.
Correct. Yeah,
You want a second?
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions on that motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. We took care of that.
All right. Next item is more coming out of the focus group and some of the complaints that have been received. Many of the business owners that I've talked with over the last 18 months get what drives the stormwater cost. Most of the businesses here do not. And when they enter into a project, they don't know why we have a stormwater management plan. They think the county was being hard on them when it's no different, our plan's no different really than any other municipality in the county. This is being driven by EPA policies. As I went over with the changes that we got occurring in MS4, they are ratcheting down. The business community was upset, wait till they see us implement next year's policies with MS4 that are going to be occurring on, when they now have to start doing annual inspections of all other facilities, and many of which they've not done maintenance in 10 years plus. And they all of a sudden have a bill now themselves, just like we have a bill. They will have a bill to fix risers, detention basins, remove sediment that's built up in a swale, and any of their NPDES permitted facilities that they have on their property. They don't even direct the frustration at us. We're basically nothing more than the mouthpiece of the state and the feds at this point, doing what we are mandated to do, doing what they will fine us if we do not do. So if they don't like it, then they need to do what other business owners have done, and that is to form their own political pack and basically go out there and actually start lobbying both Harrisburg as well as go after Schmucker at the congressional level.
Right, so this is one of those items, I believe that came up when we reviewed individually the focus groups and we came up with the data. I think when we looked at it, pulled that information together and you culminated, you saw our comments. I think this was a pretty clear indicator from the business community. They want to help out, they want to get involved,
Mhm.
okay? This is one of the key agita areas, as I call it. We're talking about an over 800% increase. This is one of those where we need somebody from the business community to step up, help us out here, develop the ideas, develop a political action committee, develop a lobbying organization, get in front of Harrisburg, get in front of senators, get in front of congressmen, get together with EFRTA, get together with whomever, develop a plan to let them know directly how they're being impacted.
Because
That's the whole idea here. So we need the business, we're asking the business community at this point, somebody needs to step up and run with this item and lead this item.
We're responding to their request, that's all.
That's their request, right. And this is the perfect item because if I would think if I'm a sitting senator in Harrisburg and I'm hearing directly from a group of business owners once a month how much of an impact and what the cost factor is here, I think they'd start paying attention.
Yeah.
I would hope, and nobody's done
More
this.
so than if we
Right.
came and crawled.
So the municipalities have been lobbying, PSATs has been lobbying,
Yeah.
PSAPs on the borough side has been lobbying, but they need to actually hear from the businesses
Yes.
as well as their donors
Right.
Yep.
that donate to their
So-
actual campaigns, that they are not happy with these at this point.
So there's business owners sitting here right now, spread the word. We need somebody to run with this action item. And it needs to start January 1. Because this is going to have a tremendous impact on our budget going forward, not to mention the next 4 years as we look further and further out. Okay?
Yep.
You guys okay with that?
Right.
Another idea that has been thrown out by a number of people in the community was a comparable analysis of our police departments to others. This one, I'll turn this over to somebody that wants to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, this is another one that came out of the focus groups, and this is one of the bullet points I had added up there. Here's the intent and here's the idea. We hear a lot of talk about the police department and in fairness to our police department.
Mhm.
I want a business owner to step up, lead the charge, take the action item to do the following. Let's do a white paper on our police department, all the police departments in Lancaster County. Let's do a comparative analysis, competitive analysis on these police departments. Where do we stand? How does our organization sit? How are the costs in line, not in line? How are the expenses? Coverage models, Chief, help me out. I think the coverage models are like 1 per 1,000. I think that's best practices, right?
Yeah.
So to basically take a look at all of it and also do a complete SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, attributes, and threats for our police department. Let's take a look. Again, we're asking for help here. Let's take a look at where we sit compared to all the other departments in Lancaster County.
I can tell you that, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, I think it's a good idea. The person or persons that volunteer to do that, they are gonna be inundated because every plan is different, every police department is different. We had a young lady who did this probably 6, 8 years ago, and it looked like our budget. It was every police department and all the headings, and you remember that, Chief. It was a circus. It's an absolute, it's an arduous task. It really is. I mean, it took her a year. It took her a year.
But the business owners in that focus group, they've asked for help.
Oh, I know.
They're very familiar with dealing with multi-tiered products that go into final products. They're very familiar with breaking that down. That's what we need to help with. I think that's what we should really do, because that'll help us greatly.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
you get the volunteers.
And like I said, this is one of the things we've talked about. We've had some discussions I've had discussions with Tony and with the chief, and I've said it here in public many times. There's a lot of work coming. This is part of that work. We need to get this done. Okay? So I really think we need to do that.
Now, the next item was the comprehensive plan development. The township on our end, I've already gone over examples of what we're doing going into next year for comprehensive plan development. Chief brought up, which borough was it?
I think it was
Akron Borough, where the business community there actually developed their own comprehensive plan and then presented to municipalities by absolutely two changes. But they got a business-led comprehensive plan. We're putting together a lot of the tools at this point for developing a comprehensive plan. One of the biggest is the transportation model. We already have it, Act 09. What does our major business quarter look like that? Well, the planning commission is tackling that with updating the 2000 order study. Goal development. Well, that's the first step of creating a business, a comprehensive plan. The board of supervisors through Nancy Hess will develop overall goals for the township via the board of supervisors, and then the staff will develop their goals in support of that. That's all being done with via Nancy Hess. We talked about the planning commission doing a official map, which is another component of a comprehensive plan. That's being done. There's also, I didn't even talk about, there's this group that we will incorporate within our budget for next year that takes all of our census data and rolls into things like we just did with these slides, digestible information that you can then put on your new website. Well, those are also things like how many rental units do we have in the township? Our rental ordinance is also part of the comprehensive plan. We're talking about doing an audit and an inventory, which you can incorporate that. But rental units, housing units, median income, median assessed value of your residential lots, commercial lots, all those different things, which again, then a business like Benderson is trying to attract people in the township that can go to our website, pull all that relevant data off to try and sell, getting a CVS or somebody to move into the township here for their development. All that information, besides helping businesses and being at the fingertip of residents, is also things that go into a comprehensive plan. Normally, we would spend thousands of engineering dollars getting them to pull it out, and because of all these rate and no requests we've been doing over the years, now they're giving us some of this information back in an organized manner. That's what this group does. So we get that information, pay a small annual fee, and that actually gets utilized as part of our comprehensive plan. So the last component would be getting our business community involved, and then with our focus group, with another focus group meeting of some sort, where the focus is on developing a comprehensive plan and handing that part over to the business development, business community, with all these other things going on simultaneously. Get their input, combine it with these inputs, then we would probably have a couple meetings, and then bam, we have a comprehensive plan. That would be probably 2 years down the road, realistically. But that would be the idea of getting the business leaders involved with that part to tag in with all the work that we're already doing that can turn into a future comprehensive plan. So a little bit different than the Akron model, so I think they did more homegrown, and we're actually doing a lot of stuff already behind the scenes at this point to position ourselves for a new plan.
It's a good idea.
So the next item is, we've already talked about this on the zoning, ordinance updates, and on the subdivision and development ordinance updates. But that is definitely needs to be a goal for 2019. There is, as we talked about in the workshop meeting under our general fund, we have monies budgeted for engineering, which is referred to, and for solicitor, which is what Tom didn't update our ordinances, so write new ordinances and update them. So basically make changes to our lot plan ordinances. Doing that via the text amendment process, not the complete wholesale change of our ordinances, which is a lot more expensive. So that would require involvement with both the zoning hearing board as well as the planning commission. On the planning commission side, they've already started one. These are standing items on the agenda of the planning commission. They've already started working on the corridor study. They've already been charged with identifying things that should change in the subdivision land development ordinance by specific numbers. So the goal would be to get both the zoning hearing board and the planning commission looking at specific things they want to change in their respective ordinances, to update the ordinances, make them a little bit more business friendly. Some things that I've thrown out that I want us to also look at. On the zoning side, I'd like to look at variable parking. We've talked about that, where a developer could come in and do a short abbreviated study showing what his actual parking needs are versus what is in the zoning ordinance. And being permitted to actually build per parking study, not build per blacktop, utilizing pre-Amazon numbers where we don't have Black Fridays anymore like we used to a decade ago. So we don't need the parking that we're in most of these projects that we're proposing. So we have abundance of blacktop going down that does not need to go down. That has the ripple effects of helping us out with stormwater. Because I mean, I know one bad word is inlets, another bad word is pipe, another bad word is detention basins. And anything that we can do to reduce those items are good things. And when we reduce impervious, we reduce those items. Other thing it allows us to do is the developer would still put in many of those stormwater features, but would leave the space as proposed future parking. So that would have a long-term stormwater plan, because most of them will never build the parking. It will have an improved stormwater facility to go along with it. It might even get to a point where we can bank some of that with MS4. That's still to be looked at. But what it would allow too is the developers, the property owners complaining, I'm doing a 5,000 square foot addition, now I got to do this whole stormwater plan, the world's coming to an end. Well, they already have 40 parking spaces reserved and they need to add 10 more. Then in theory, that impervious is already there. All they got to do is pay. So that avoids the future property owner from having to do a stormwater management plan in the future, add 10, 20 more parking spaces, or add a couple thousand square feet to the property that it's already been incorporated in the project, and the stormwater facilities have already been built.
Yeah, and this is really important for, we're open for business.
Yeah.
This has to be done.
So that would be a number one item for zoning. Another one on zoning, which is a pet peeve of mine, is having small businesses have to go before the zoning hearing board. I would like them to go to Tony and have a permanent process in place where they can just go to Tony and apply for a small permanent application, and not have to do a zoning hearing board hearing. So there's little tweaks like that that I can see on the zoning side. On the land development side, there's a number of small changes that I think that need to be made. Talking about like where we're going to be doing with requiring curb and sidewalk, making alternatives, in particular sidewalk materials, allowing gravel in some parking lot areas versus all by 2 minutes. Some common sense things that we can incorporate into the subdivision and land development code that will make it a little bit more friendly for property owners. That will get driven by what the planning commission comes up with the border assessment. But as Tony and I heard in PennDOT, curbs are bad, or PennDOT's book at this point. They want to see swales everywhere, so that's going to make the 272 corridor harder to develop all curb at this point. We're going to have to change our plans. Even though the focus group did have some people saying they did not like that, because they would like the piers that have an entire
Clean
curb,
look.
and it's a very clean look,
Right.
but it's also a very expensive look, and it creates an MS4 headache. And PennDOT is the permittee of the charge of what can be built on their corridor, and they will make it more difficult in the future for us to put curb and sidewalk. So we have to look at what we can do. And one of the things we got to do is we got to have more swales. It will also lead, and the ironic thing is I presented this to Burke's Homes, that we are going to have to be updating our stormwater ordinance with this DEP 2022 model, which is going to be more restrictive. And one of the things they're going to be emphasizing is what's called low impact development. So we're going to have to roll that into our subdivision land development ordinance. What that means is a lot of your future developments are going to go away from having curb, will go away from having sidewalk, and they will go to having swales. That caused my contact at Burke Homes to get very sick in the stomach. It's ironic because from a development perspective, it's reducing its cost.
Right.
But there are some headaches that go along with doing that as a builder, even though it might reduce cost. And there are some concerns that whether residents will accept it or not. But that is the way of the future. At this point, more and more of the land development projects are going to be low impact development. We're going to reflect that in SALDO and in our future stormwater ordinance that we adopt next year. So we're going to have SALDO zoning. We have to adopt the model 2022 DEP ordinance next year. So So we said there's gonna be lots of opportunities to annoy the business community, that's gonna be another one. When we adopt what DEP's mandating, it has to be in the new ordinance. That will include low-impact development, which has a ripple effect of future development in the township. It's gonna look a lot different than what it currently looks like. There's a lot of change that's being driven by stormwater at this point, and what the stormwater impacts both on the PennDOT side as well as on the municipal side. All that needs to get rolled into ordinance updates. We also need to have a small cell tower ordinance update. More than likely, as I see Mr. Brubaker back there, there's going to be discussion about rent ordinance. So we're going to have a bunch of these ordinances that are going to have a lot of different ordinances that are going to be occurring at this point. And I did apologize to Mr. Brubaker for not having the rental ordinance discussion, and promised that that would be our top agenda item at our next meeting, so we can get that working through on. But there's all ordinances that are going to have to be done. When we talked about, it's not on this list, but when we talked about rental ordinance update, we talked about having a respectable landlord and a respectable tenant serve on whatever working group, so that we get those perspectives too. So that we're not coming across as too heavy-handed on a good landlord or a good tenant. The idea is not to do that. So that's what those two items are in the planning. EMS is the next item on there. We are definitely at a crossroads with EMS. Scott Aki has made it very clear the situation with the Reamstown Fire Department and how much it's costing them this year out of the fire department's budget for finding EMS services. We do not know at this point what our final product is going to look like. We do know that 2019 is going to be a year of transition. There's going to be an expense that goes along with that transition, but we have to provide that service. Whether we're providing it through WellSpan, whether we're holding afloat Reamstown EMS a little bit longer to allow another plan to develop, whether there's a merger, whether it's bringing in one of Susquehanna Valley EMS, NEMSA, up into this area, something's going to have to occur on the EMS side, and that's going to cost money. Professional service vendors review and evaluations. Just a best management practice is to look at the cost of doing business. Doesn't necessarily mean putting out professional RFPs, but it does kind of look at what our costs are versus what others are charging and maybe making some changes on the professional services side. BOS ownership and assignment for each build and development. This has been talked about in the past. It's going to be one of the Board of Supervisors' goals. It's already been started with a number of our entities, and by default, Mr. Fry's already become the UGI contact. They seem to really like you, so they do that. So you're the contact with them.
To begin with.
So, but every developer, every development project will have a supervisor assigned. One of the changes we've implemented in the last 18 months has been that there's a lot more owner-developer representation whenever there's an engineering meeting. That keeps everybody honest at this point. It's amazing having the owner there and actually hearing the comments and seeing the comments, seeing the red lines laid out, and having understanding about why those comments were made. It's just changed the tone at this point. It's holding everybody accountable. That has been, I think, a big part of the success that we've had with a number of our development projects. A lot less finger pointing and a lot more camaraderie and a lot better product on all sides. An idea that RC threw up was business owner and assignments for each existing business owner. If you want to talk about that.
So this was some of the data I saw on the focus group results. This goes back to for next year, again, to help us out with our budget and what we see coming, is I really believe each one of us should be assigned to one specific existing business or business owner or the manager at a location as a contact point, okay? Again, to facilitate the growth, facilitate reinforcing we're open for business for next year, okay?
Another process that came out of all this and the discussions of what you're approving when you advertise the budget tonight is with the changes in staffing and hiring of part-timers, we are going to have to rework our offices. We're going to be utilizing Nancy Hess to relook at our workloads. Accessibility, logistical changes are going to have to be made. We already talked about some of the efficiency improvements. Talked about the hiring of a new MS4 technician. We talked about assigning that MS4 technician to Tony, our zoning officer. His office holds 2, and it's 2 in a very compact. So I'm asking the board's permission is that...
Bump desks.
Yeah, nice try.
Yeah. What I'm asking the board is that we would move them the zoning office would move next door here. And we would move you guys to the smaller zoning office.
It'd make more sense for you anyway, because you guys could come out here and look at plans, right?
And it'll give a really good office space. We're more likely, we do have in the budget a new copier. We did not spend it last year for the zoning office. We will need to do that for this one. There needs to be a copy printer scanner that they can print. He can do his work out of that, to do that office. We'll retire the Edwards printer. That's really, for the most part, kind of useless at this point. And then it'll be a full function office at this point.
The real positive is my window is 2 flights down. I can't jump out that window. This window I can jump out. On the roof, yeah.
So you're also going to miss the howling noise that comes from the conference room. When
No, it won't. It's over here too.
Yeah, right.
The window over here.
Makes it easier to jump.
There's going to be other reorganizations. The other big reorganization is on the public works side. We're going to be doing things differently. In the budget, we are no longer going to be doing mowing. So we need to get some cost estimates for mowing Fishing Creek, for mowing Stony Point Park, and for mowing the top lot in Carriage Hill. But we are going to be utilizing contracted services so that Chris's guys can focus on their primary responsibility, which is roads first, stormwater second. And mowing grass does not really factor into that equation. So definitely going to be reorder work, and with the road crew going down a person about how we get work done, work's going to be prioritized. Chris has done a really good job of creating a prioritized list. The goal is always to have more on the list. And we have people to do the work that forces prioritization. And that's where we're at right now. We'll definitely be at that when we go down to 4. But by adjusting, shifting the mowing to a contractor, which again is in the budget, that gives us 2 full man days of work back for doing road crew work. We basically had 2 guys, each spending 1 day mowing grass. That now gives us 2 full days of work back. It does mean that we use more part-time work too for snowplow. We've already reach out to talk to a couple individuals with CDL licenses about working for the township, as well as the one employee who's leaving us to go start trucking, about at least coming back and doing CDL plowing for us. Updated communications, we already talked about the website pretty much ad nauseum at this point, but that is going to be important for getting information out in the future, getting updates out. It's becoming more and more the main way municipalities communicate, especially when it's tied to our alert system. That's where it becomes very, very effective. School districts have that down to a T. Municipalities are starting to learn how to imitate what the school districts have done successfully for a number of years now.
We talked about next one.
Okay. Next one's the one box.
Yeah, so in my conversations with our fire chiefs, this conversation came up about the run box area. To make this budget work for 2019 and beyond, what I'd like to do is ask the fire departments to provide us a run box area for each fire department, an actual map of where they're actually running, where their boundaries are. Item number 17 is related to that. It's also, I'd like to see on that another map superimposed on that one of every single fire department that's actually running within East Cocalico Township. Because it's my understanding right now, as I was going through some budget numbers here and we were looking at some projections, I'm trying to understand why I think we have some other municipalities running within East Cocalico Township. So, you know, again, as I said before, there's going to be a lot of work coming in 2019 from everybody, and asking, I see one of our chiefs back there, I'm asking the chief to provide, to get that word out there that I'd like to see those, if that's okay.
I think I can get them from county,
Okay.
specifically both of them.
Okay. Then the other thing I'd like to do is, and this goes back to looking at these projected budgets over the next 4 years, I'd like to see the budget and the financials for every fire department in 2017, 2018, and what you're looking at for 2019, for every fire, from every fire department. I'd also like to see their your budgets and your actuals and the financials same years for EMS.
And that fire department, is that just the 3 townships or the ones that all run east of Calico? Because that opens you up to like 7 fire departments, I believe it is.
Well, what I'd like to do now is just start with our departments, our three departments for now, okay? And that should be quick for you guys to get that, but that's...
Yeah, I think we started working on that with Scott here last year, started to provide that.
Yeah, that's extremely important as we're putting these strategic plans together on these budgets and to execute on the 2019 budget that we're rolling out, okay?
Probably one other thing I didn't put in there because there's still some work to do, and I want to talk with the 3 fire chiefs. But I do have the Hempfield areas robbery study, and I want to run that past them. We've not had an opportunity for a meeting next. I need to have a meeting first with Scott Oshie when he gets back on Monday to talk about EMS services, and then we will talk about fire services next. If we do go down that road, then I will probably be looking at a out-of-budget project for next year. If the fire chiefs all agree that this is something worthwhile. But that's not in here because that's more of a discussion that still needs to occur. But since I have a fire chief here, they're going to throw that out real quick. And he knows who Robert Brady is. He's well known in the fire services community. Next one is on here is the liaisons and ambassadors, and I'll turn this one over to you.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that I had mentioned to Scott, and so he was looking for some feedback. Looking at this budget, looking at the cost increases that are coming in 20, 21, and 19, I think one of the most important things we can do is actually, again, assign one of us a supervisor, possibly one business owner, possibly one employee, I'm not quite sure yet. The whole point here is we deal heavily, of course, with Denver Borough, with West Cocalico and Adamstown. We also adjoin Brecknock, Terry Hill, Earl Township, Ephrata, and Spring. We should be setting up communication channels with all those municipalities, specifically in terms of police coverage for those municipalities, and specifically in terms of just opening the lines of communications with our neighbors, also related to now the helipad that we have there. So there's a lot of things we should be communicating with our neighbors about as we look at our strategies going forward.
This will also apply to EMS.
And to EMS,
Yes,
thank you.
because a number of the municipalities will be at the meeting on Monday.
Right.
I'm talking about EMS, and while they might not be in the exact same situation that we are, I guarantee 5 years from now they will be. If there's not change at this point. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion, but effort will be there. I would assume West Cocalico will be at the meeting, and as a minimum, and probably Cocalico Township at a minimum will be at the meeting too, because they all have drivers that Wellspan currently has part-time drivers for those EMSs that support those municipalities. Denver Borough is an eye-opener to them when I told them about Greenstown's situation, because Denver Borough is covered by Greenstown EMS. So we are all kind of interrelated at this point. So EMS is of importance. That's actually a pending crisis for this region, and it certainly has Wellspan's attention at this point.
So the other ones that I gave Scott some feedback on for the budget and for strategy for this budget is I think we need to, we're open for business now. We really are emphasizing that going forward. We need to somehow set up some sort of marketing liaison, somebody who is, again, a liaison and ambassador to the residential real estate companies in the area, as well as to the commercial real estate companies in the area. Somehow set something up there to help us out in terms of getting that word out, letting everyone know just we're open for business, we're moving forward, and we're moving forward fairly aggressively. Okay?
Next one is, I'll throw out chiefs at this point, so I'll let you talk about that one.
I think what we're gonna try to do over the winter time is do a self-defense night for ladies in the area who would be interested. And there was a vendor at the Denver Fair, which RC initially talked to, and then I spoke to, sells products in that realm. And I believe one of our officers, actually our detective, would be more than willing to have some type of seminar or conduct just a night of showing some different things in reference to being safe and how to defend yourself in a very quick manner. We're looking at doing that over the winter.
I want to commend the police force last night during Halloween. Officers were going around giving candy and stuffed animals through.
Yeah, we gave out about 1,100 pieces of candy and went throughout the community, met a lot of the kids. There were 4 of us out, 2 on patrol, Officer Soul, Officer Longo, and then myself and Sergeant Pro were around. So it was a success again. The kids really like it.
I'd like to get compliments of it.
Good.
Another form of community outreach, this goes without saying, will be the successful implementation of the school resource officer. That is one of your biggest community outreach, and that's what the main role of the school resource officer is. Obviously, they're there for the worst case, still rather rare active shooting situation in a school. But what they're really there for is to serve as the guidance counselor, to serve as the person who intercedes a problem long before it becomes a problem. And that is the example of community outreach and community policing by having an active, very engaged school resource officer, which is what I anticipate we'll have in the Cocalico School District. Next item up was a welcome package and a kit for new businesses that has been discussed in the past, as well as a plaque for new business has been discussed. New on here would be a welcome letter for new homeowners, which I actually kind of think is a pretty good idea. I would like to expand that beyond just phone numbers, websites, and YouTube. What I would like the township to do in 2019, when time becomes available, would be for us to develop a homeowner's guide that we would use in lieu of one of our normal newsletter mailings, or maybe in addition to a newsletter mailing, that goes over basically a 101 type guide for all the things that a homeowner should know about, is expected to do, from the basics like making them aware that yes, that curb and sidewalk, you own it, you need to maintain it. No, it's not a good idea to blow your glass clippings onto the street and clog up the drain. That's a bad thing. No, it's not good to get your burn barrel out and 5 feet away from your neighbor's window. Light the fire and have the smoke in your neighbor's window.
You're not allowed to burn in the township to begin with.
So, a lot of the more common things like, here's our website, here's an update on stormwater, because once we need to be doing educational pieces. Well, here's the resident's responsibility. Oh, by the way, here's the reason why you're paying this fee in the mail now. And this is what it's going to just a lot of things, how, community police, just basically an overall guide. It'd be nice. So we go beyond just a welcome letter for new homeowners. This would go all to all. But then, of course, when a new homeowner would come in, this would be the letter that would be accompanying them with all the key information from the authority, things that the authority would want people to know, tax collector, routine things that we put out should be just in a regular newsletter that is a homeowner's guide that they can then reference. And then be something to actually keep going through on the circular file. So That would be one of the things I'd like to see to actually accompany that welcome letter, and it's something that myself and Tony and the MS board technician and a whole slew of other people would have to put together, plus feedback and input from the board, and looking at what some of the other municipalities have done, so we're kind of reinvent the wheel.
I don't know if you remember back in the day when we moved into Denver Borough back in the 80s, we got a packet from the Welcome Way people, which had a lot of that information, you know, which was nice, and I guess that's gone to the wayside. I haven't
No,
seen
that's
it.
still good.
There is still- That was a great thing when we first moved in, you know, the homeowners and get all this information through the call and all that, so it was nice. It sounds like a good idea.
Maybe you can cut down some of the calls where people don't even know that they're residents of East Cocalico.
Well, especially with the Denver address.
Right.
Or
So-
Effort address.
Yeah, so we get a lot of calls where people are surprised they're residents, or they think they're residents and they're not. So there's both types of calls right now.
Right.
Tony gets the ones that think they are.
Both ways. And people don't realize we have 5 mailing post offices in East Cocalico Township. We have a den now from Africa all the way up to Rhinebeck.
So I think it'd be a good tool. We would definitely be one of the first municipalities on where everyone's, because we got the management group, I've circulated emails around. If we put something like a letter like that together, we're one of the first to do it. I mean, and I think it'd be a useful tool. There's just so much, we think we get bombarded with information. Residents don't have a foggy clue as to what their responsibilities are, what the township's up to. Just the very basics. And that's the idea, is to get that information at their fingertips.
The one thing you have to be cognizant of is the first guy you miss, you'll hear about it. You know that, right,
Oh,
Cody?
yeah, I get the call.
So, you know, I mean, if they come in for a building permit, you're gonna know, but if they buy from Charlie, the developer,
Yeah.
you know, it's a great idea, don't get me wrong, but there's always a downside.
We'll have to figure that, when that could be tied into the new NEMRIC software by for our tax collector and the quarterly updates we get from the county. We might be dealing with, we get a quarterly update, our tax collector lets us know that we've had 15 new residential parcels that have been built. We've had 15 properties that changed hands. And at that point, we would take that and we would do a special mailing just to those residents. But I agree with you, the first one we do this, we will hear about it. And that's working on how good the county data is.
Yeah, that's right.
Or that does there too. Next one is school-led banner designs with high school and elementary school kid participation.
Right, so this goes back to, again, part of that beautification strategy. It's just reminding us that this is one of those items we've got to work on in 2019, okay, to make this budget work. Because it's a qualitative portion of the budget. Same thing with the welcome signs for East Cocalico Township. Again, it's a qualitative portion of this budget. We need to keep that in mind and think about that. Okay.
One thing to think about too is that picture I showed you guys of the banners that like the does
On the sign.
on the signal poles. With Carl Howard Boulevard being the main entrance in, we can't put signs up in the corridor. But the one thing we do control, because we own the signals, is the signal poles. So that is one area where we could put banners that kind of say gateway, whatever we want to say, coming in. We could put them at that location. We could put them at our 897 signal of 272 coming in from Amstown from that direction. So from that other side, we could do Garden Spot. We could do Church Street. Basically, we do all our signals, and we're hitting all the entry points into the township with something.
So and then the next one that I think we should think about, and Tony's going to probably jump out that window, is we had that initial focus group. There was a lot of good information. We've had a lot of conversations about that. Okay, a lot of these items going in the next year come from there, and they're reflected in the budget items. I think we really need to take a look at doing another round of focus groups, but now we actually break it into 2 areas. It's who's built or who's developed or who's completed a project within the last 5 years, and then another round of in 6 to 10 years, if we can identify those. The reason is that'll give us a real good idea then of what the general picture was. In the last 5 years, what was the feedback that we got? And then that center band of 6 to 10 years, we'll see if we're progressing in the right direction. So something to think about that we need to do in 19.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I conclude the presentation slides that we just talked about. And we're back on to our agenda at this point.
Okay.
I did ask that all remaining old business be discussed at our next meeting.
You need a proposal.
You have a motion before you, and I will read the motion. The motion is to approve the advertising of the proposed 2019 draft budget as discussed.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions?
Specific ones, or specific ones related to the budget, or? Because I do have one question,
Yeah,
it wasn't
go ahead.
addressed at all. That is the MS4 stormwater fee, how's that going to be handled?
There's different ways we can do it. The most fair way I feel that we can do that, and what I propose is we do it by property assessment. So that would be basically what the assessed value of the property would be regardless of tax status, because it's a fee, not a tax. So every parcel in the township will be paying a fee. It's very easy to implement. We've already reached out to Memrick, who will be providing our new tax software going forward. With our new tax collector, there's going to be a new tax software program. We're going away from the DOS-based software program that we currently have at this point for doing tax collection. And that's going to be the easiest to implement. The hardest to implement would be doing percent impervious. And I think nowadays, given that it's now driven by water quality, not by water volume, a percent impervious is an unfair fee at this point. It needs to be imposed on all properties, not on a couple industrial, a couple commercial tracts, who quite frankly have an NPDES stormwater basin, really not the contributing problem at this point. So the cost needs to be spread around to be fair.
So it's going to be assessed on everyone,
Every property.
fire companies, churches, all the nonprofits.
Every property.
Every property.
It is a fee,
Yeah,
Because
not a tax.
it'll be,
That's the proposal.
the proposal is an assessment on, a fee on the property assessment.
Correct.
And you have mentioned no numbers yet, is that correct?
We don't know what the millage is. We're working on that. It's a $150,000 fee though.
The total we
The
need to
total
get
that you would like to bring in, I got that, yeah, I heard that.
And it'll be applied to fire departments, churches, everyone, because DEP sees, they expect the same from all of them, regardless of whether they're tax exempt or not.
And with the board advertised in the budget tonight, assuming a positive vote in a minute, next steps will be determining millages with the tax collector. We do have the tax collector interviews next week, so we have that whole thing going on with bringing a new tax collector in. And also then, probably a month out from doing the 4-year projections, which will be incorporated and done before you approve the final budget, so that we can just see where we're trending for the next 4 years. We definitely have really good numbers now with 2019 budget data. I mean, Chief and myself and Liz spent a lot of time at this point. What little hair Chief has is gone now because of that.
It sure is.
So we got, there's been a lot of work at this point putting this together. I feel very confident that we can project. Our last round of projections will now be more than a swag.
But we still have more work to do yet.
Got a lot more work to do.
Just one clarification, would that stormwater fee be rolled into the one tax bill, or would it be separate?
Because it's a fee, we cannot put it as a tax bill.
Separate bill.
It has to be a separate bill.
Good question.
On the municipality, or I'm sorry, on the property owners that are under LERTA, like right now it's UGI, how would that impact their MS4 fee, if anything?
A
if at
fee
all?
is a straight up whatever the assessed value of the property, so there does not apply to a stormwater fee.
Assessed value of their land. That's on your tax notice, what your land is valued at.
So whatever that snapshot at that moment that your assessed value is, that's what the fee is.
So whether they're in LERTA or not, that
Doesn't matter.
has
It
zero
doesn't matter.
impact.
Correct.